The political world in shock. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham dying suddenly at his home over the weekend, with officials saying Graham suffered an aortic dissection, a sudden tear in the body's largest artery, and one of the deadliest cardiovascular emergencies. About an hour ago, South Carolina's governor appointing Lindsey Graham's sister to finish his Senate term, which ends in January. Tributes pouring in all day for one of Washington's most influential foreign policy voices, who is still working right up until his death with a trip to Ukraine. His last words, according to Axios, quote, "I can't die now. I still need to do the Russia sanctions, get Iran sorted out, and do Israeli-Saudi normalization." He passed away hours later. President Trump remembering Graham as a tireless worker and one of his closest allies.
He was a great guy, and he was a friend. He was a worker. He was a total workaholic politician. Now, some people don't call that work. Some people call that a lot of talking. But everybody loved him. He was good on the other side. If I had Democrat problems, he could solve them.
But some liberals are showing their true colors, dancing on the late senator's grave with disgraceful videos and posts, desecrating his legacy just hours after the announcement of his death. But most will remember Lindsey for his unwavering patriotism and political masterclass, like his defense of Brett Kavanaugh on Capitol Hill back in 2018.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it.
Yeah, Emily, you still get the chills watching that big Kavanaugh moment.
An incredible defense of the sanctity and the integrity of the process instead of diving into politicization that, unfortunately, I think has been normalized in this country. I think the late senator now represents this moral code and really just pure character that, unfortunately, is lost. I think he represents a bygone era, albeit passing away far too soon. My last memory of him in person was actually on 6th Avenue here. I think I was coming from the building and he was going into the building. And he was walking down the street laughing, like super joyful. He had some people around him. And I think of that with such joy because he, to me, represented that you can be happy and joyful and productive at the same time. And for some reason, I think things have been shifted and warped now that people equate being angry or being toxic with somehow being a part of the workforce or having to get something done on the Hill. He was always joyful. He spread light everywhere he went. And even in his defense of the process of now Justice Kavanaugh, was he angry? No. He was just fierce, and he was fiercely devoted to this country with obviously all of his decades of service, including as a colonel in the United States Air Force. And I was in South Carolina recently, a few weeks ago, and even there at the next table over at dinner, the South Carolinians were talking about him. He was like the positive topic of conversation in that state. They loved him so much. And just a final point that for us, as shocking even as we have there on the Chiron that this is, and for his young age, we can lose our loved ones at any point. And certainly it's important, learn your family history. And if there's some way that a test could somehow reveal a risk for you and your family, perhaps it might enable you to spend some more time with your loved ones. But certainly we remember his legacy forever.
Yeah, 71, Harold. I mean, what a shock. A lot of people, no one saw this coming.
So I got elected to Congress. I was 26 years old in 1996. I met Lindsey, and he got elected to the Senate several years after that. And he was close friends, as has been noted, with John McCain. And they used to go take trips to the Middle East. My first trip to Israel and Iraq and all of the stands around Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan was with Lindsey and Senator Graham and Senator McCain. They took a liking to me because they only took senators. I'll never forget a trip we were on. We were in Israel. It was mid-morning, and we helicoptered to a border, to one of Israel's borders. With another country, obviously. And all of a sudden we turn around, the helicopter's loud and we have helmets on. McCain takes his helmet off and we turn around and McCain is bleeding from the face profusely. Lindsey and I look at one another, we go to grab him. We think he could have been shot. There's so much noise and chaos. And it turned out McCain took his helmet off in the helicopter and jumped up too quickly and hit his head on a screw on the top of the helicopter. So Lindsey and I looked at each other. We'd been 2 days gone. We were both exhausted. McCain had the most draining trips. We got a lot out of it, but we didn't get much sleep. And we just knew we'd be able to go back to the hotel, get a nap in the afternoon because he'd have to get 30 stitches. He gets in a car, McCain. They come out. 10 minutes later, he has 20 stitches in his head. He goes, boys, let's go.
Wow.
And Lindsey and I look at each other, you got to be kidding me. Lindsey Graham, whether you agree with him or not, he, to me, embodied and personified in the Senate today the person who believed most that relationships in politics should yield real outcomes and that you should work towards them. He never let a slight, he never let yesterday's comments, yesterday's words or actions prevent him from doing something the next day that would make the country better. I think today in politics, we hold to, Lindsey was making this point as well, Emily was making this point as well about Lindsey, we hold people to these unbelievable standards, and we think that there's a perfection to people. There's not a perfection to people. There's not a perfection to legislation. People every day are going to be themselves, and you got to hope that humanity bends itself towards some harmony. And Lindsey, I think, lived his political life and lived his personal life, particularly his political life, trying to create that kind of harmony and humanity through legislation. So he will be missed as a legislator, and I'll miss him as a friend. I'm glad the governor saw fit to appoint his sister to fill the remaining term.
All right, so the sister's going to take over until January, but I mean, the guy will be missed in the Republican Party when you think about he is in charge of judicial confirmations, appropriations, Pentagon, Ukraine, Iran. What's next?
Well, I think the appointment is a beautiful thing, and I think a lot of people agree with that. I had Trey Gowdy on the show, former congressman from South Carolina, earlier today. He said it's the best idea I've seen since electricity. He called it poetically beautiful, said that Lindsey Graham would be smiling from heaven to see his beautiful sister, Darlene, who he's helped start raising at the age of 11 years old when both of their parents passed away just 15 months apart. They've gone through battles together. They have fiercely lived together. And Stephen Miller was on with Will Keynes just a short time ago, and he noted that he thought that Lindsey Graham was in the most vibrant career of his life. I mean, he was living every day to the fullest. You talk to anybody who was with him every single day, talking about just his passion for this country. And I'll never forget the first time I spent the biggest amount of chunk with Lindsey Graham was back in the earliest days of Outnumbered, Emily. And we had just launched, so April 2014, right? So then 2015, he's gearing up for his presidential run. June 2015, he made his announcement. He came and sat on the couch for the first time. And I just remember all of my conversations with him on camera, off camera. You walked away with this sense of this was a man who truly wanted to see progress for this country. He truly wanted to do the best thing for the American people. I walked away with just this sense of patriotism. I mean, that's not fake with Lindsey Graham. I mean, he really lived that out in his everyday life. Just an incredible character. We're all going to miss him so much. I just can't imagine the Senate without him.
And quite a character.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse, he was funny. That's the thing about it. He had a great sense of humor. And do you remember this? He used to fight with Trump. I mean, he ran for president. We all forget 2016. He was on there. He was on the big dais there when they were doing the debates and everything. He fought with Trump because he was a hawk and Trump was really anti-war. And he would go after him. Trump famously says, I go hard. He went hard at Trump. And do you remember when Trump gave out his phone number on the stump? He said his phone number, and everyone wrote it down, and they were calling his number. He had to change his phone number. So what did Lindsey Graham do? He made a video called How to Destroy Your Phone. Yeah. And he destroyed like 15 phones in the video. He did it with his golf club. He threw it off a roof. He did a video.
It got a lot of got a lot of views.
It was huge. And the funny thing about that was it didn't even make any sense because we all know you can just change your number. You don't have to destroy your phone. But he knew the visual angle on it. He's also very old school in that he went hard against Trump, but then when it's time to make up, he goes in and makes a deal. Old-fashioned politician. He could work across the aisle, and with Trump it wasn't across the aisle, but he would get into it. And still, when Trump in his second term, he was willing to kind of fight with Trump and then make up and try to make a deal. And he's very Trumpian in that way.
He is.
He came to visit me one summer. This is 11 years. My daughter would have been 10 years ago. My daughter would have been 9 years ago. She was 3 years old. My son was 2. I said, Lindsey, give them the kids a little message before we go to dinner. And he goes, You'll never see a Social Security check. I said, no, they're Canadian too. I said, tell them something. I said, they play sports. You're from South Carolina. Tell them about the Gamecocks. He goes, okay. You'll never see a Social Security check. I mean, that's what I'm going to miss about him. I'm going to miss the politics and being willing to forgive and forget and move on, but forget the humanity of the guy. I will miss him.
Yeah, I have some Lindsey stories too, but I'll share those in the commercial. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.